Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Sam Spade from the Midnight Devils. You're listening to Concerts That Made Us, our brand new album, So Hard It Hurts, out now. I want you to get laid because you better believe I'm getting laid tonight.
Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, Concerts That Made Us. Interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and the cheering crowd sound. It's concerts, concerts that made us, concertsthatmadeus.com.
Sam, I have to say it is absolutely fantastic to have you back on the show.
You know what? It is a pleasure being here. It's like a repeat offense. Here we are again, and it's great. I appreciate you having me back. This is really cool. Always a pleasure talking to you.
I really like how you put that now. I like it. Now, first off, you just won an award, the Best International Youngblood at the HRH X Awards in the UK. How does it feel to see all the hard work being recognised?
I absolutely love it. I think it's incredible. My takeaway from this whole thing is that we do this award ceremony in Omaha, in Nebraska, where we're from, right? And for years now, the Midnight Devils not even looked at, not even considered. And we travel to England, we travel to the UK, we travel all over the world. And it's kind of very cool to see that our friends, all these rock and roll wild animals in the UK, love this music as much as we do and really appreciate it enough to show us that, to give us this award. I think it's incredible. It's amazing. And I saw the video last night and was just like, this might be the coolest thing ever. I might have to just go over to the UK now. We'll just maybe retire over there.
Definitely something to look at anyway. And back in July, the Midnight Devils released the third album, So Hard It Hurts. I mean, Never Begged for It was one hell of a party. When it came to thinking about the new album, what sort of conversations were being had? How were you going to follow on from it?
Yeah, absolutely. We thought, how are we going to tell the story? So we don't think like, is this going to be a hit? We got to write these massive make or break songs. And I think like our thinking has changed in that way, where it's like we're such a road band and all we want to do is continue the party, so to say. We want to continue the story and keep putting out records and keep doing this thing called the Midnight Devils, because I think it's truly limitless, and it's anything that we can imagine, anything that we can come up with, we're going to do it. And so with this album, we thought we got to step it up production wise. We got to step up our songwriting. We're going to just cut down all the fat and just write great rock and roll songs that we can tour on for the next 2 years. So that's how it is. It's just like we're just going to keep pushing the envelope and keep pushing the party for as long as we possibly can.
I like it. I like it. Now, sonically, how do you think the album kind of showcases growth within the band over the last 2 years?
Oh, great question. And I think a lot of it has to do with our production team. On 2022's Never Beg for It, we used Chip. Chip's Enough from the band Enough's Enough, and he was incredible. Learned so much from him. With this one, we were like, we got to go even farther beyond that. So we lucked out, and through a tour manager introduced us to Rick Browdy, who produced our album. He produced Ted Nugent, Double Live Gonzo, Poison, Look What the Cat Dragged In, like these massive albums. And I was nervous going in, thinking like, this guy is rock and roll royalty. And we went to his house and he sat down and really gave me personally like a master class on how to write great songs. And sitting there with the gold records on the walls, the platinum, you like seeing Def Leppard and Joan Jett, all these, you're like, I think we're in good hands. Is Rick mixed with Cher Ross and Bam Ross, were our production team. Cher from Vixen and Bam from Dogs D'Amour was like a no-brainer. I was like, how can we lose with such a great team like this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Was there any kind of challenges or memorable moments you can share with us from recording and production?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are kind of based in three different cities. The Midnight Devils, I'm in Nebraska. Sniper's down in Oklahoma City, and then Jimmy's all the way down in New Orleans. So the big hurdle for us was to get us all together, get all the songs ready to rock, and then we rented a van and drove 24 hours straight through all the way down to Florida just to start the recording process. And we were down there for maybe a week, sleeping on floors, my brother's floor and Rick's couch and all this stuff. I think that kind of is an old school way of doing it, and it lends to being around each other and talking. And that's really like what's missing. It's that simple, is that we spend so much time together. We almost have this own way of talking and making jokes and entertaining ourselves. So I think those road trips and those hard times really can be felt and heard on that record. And the amount of work that we put in, we sat around at this beautiful place in Florida and kind of secluded ourselves from the rest of the world and just knocked this album out and had a blast doing it.
I love it. I love it. Do you think more bands need to do that? I mean, would you guys ever be open to, recording over the internet, sharing files, stuff like that?
Yeah, we've talked about it. And I think that with technology comes limitless possibilities. And I've done a few songs here and there that we've shipped out. And I think it is a cool way to kind of to bridge the distance gap, if you will. But that being said, there's something special and something magical and something that you can hear when all the guys are in the room playing. And that's undeniable. And that goes back to watching our heroes and what our heroes did, what Kiss did, what Van Halen, what the Ramones did. They were all in the same room and they all lived it right there. And that's the cool thing about our songs, is that every one of the songs comes from a story that we had while we were on the road touring for the last 2 years. So it's a really cool thing to see these songs kind of come alive because of some stupid moment we had on the road somewhere, overseas. And I think that's the really cool part about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Back to the production team, with three heavy hitters like that, you've got Rick, Cher, and Bam. What was the dynamic like between them? Was there any butting of heads?
That's such a great question that nobody's asked me that before. Rick was really the lead. So Rick went in as the producer, as the lead. And with him, it was all about the songs and crafting these great songs, where Cher is really focused on the music and making sure that every melody, every harmony, everything is where it's supposed to be. It's more of her on the engineering side. And then Bam was the guy that kind of mixed and mastered and was like the end. So he was like the gatekeeper at the end. So nothing flew unless Bam said so. And he went through every song and really cut them all together. So it's like that beautiful team. And you could see how they worked. And I would just sit there and be stunned. Like they would sit there for 12 hours while we recorded this, just back and forth talking, like, how can we get these songs right? How can we get these where they need to go? And seeing that, I go, okay, these guys know what they're doing. And we're just going to kind of step aside and perform our songs and do what we're supposed to do because we're in such capable hands.
True. When
no
you're
butting heads.
Good to hear. Good to hear. When you're working with people like that, I'd imagine it gives your confidence like a rocket boost. Do you kind of have these expectations from the start of, oh, I have him working on it, so it's going to be like the biggest album ever?
Yeah, absolutely. And so you can't help yourself when you're sitting there in the room thinking, like, when am I going to get my platinum record on the wall? Like, I want the Midnight Devils to do that. You have those expectations. But like I said, it's like a retraining of your mind to think like, okay, we're not going to climb the mountain in one day. We're not going to win the race in one day. And especially with the Midnight Devils, I've come to learn it's a long haul. And we're just going to chip at that mountain and just become ingrained in the psyche of anybody that we come across. So with that, I just wanted to put out an album that we thought we were really proud of. And like I said, told that story and was one step above what we did in the past. And I think that's what it boils down to, is how are we going to move forward positively, no matter how far we move forward, as long as we're moving forward positively. Like, that's all I can really ask at the end of the day.
True. And that's one thing that comes off the bat straight away with you guys. You're one of the most positive group of people out there in the rock and roll community. There's not one bit of negativity around you guys. It's great to see.
I think that's what is needed in this style of music. And I tell everybody, like, we don't take it so seriously because it's supposed to be fun, because it's supposed to be rock and roll. There's supposed to be jokes in this. Like, the whole thing is a joke. And when you kind of take it like that and look at it as fun and look at it as like, we're doing these things because this is what we do, and it's like a no-brainer. Like we were supposed to be traveling to Japan and traveling to Australia and going through these, it's not easy, and going through these tough times, the three of us all together, you have to make it enjoyable. And I really think that that's the solid thing with the Midnight Devils, is that we have fun at what we do. And I think that's what's missing in rock and roll. I love Steel Panther. I love what they do. I think they're great. And I think it's just like we can continue kind of that idea without theirs is obviously a joke, and like they're telling comedy and stuff like that. But where AC/DC, Bon Scott and Brian Johnson had that tongue-in-cheek kind of humor where you knew what they were talking about, but they didn't overtly say it. I think that's kind of like our bread and butter right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the album, what specific aspects do you think appeal to listeners this time around?
I thought it boils down to a great guitar playing and great songs, huge catchy choruses. And so where I'm at is like people listen to the songs and they kind of certain songs they'll gravitate towards, and for certain reasons, and that's exactly what we want. And when they tell me that, I think in the back of my mind, like, why do we write the song So Hard It Hurts? What is that song about? Who was that song about? And in my mind, it makes me laugh every single time. But people take it differently. They apply it to their own lives. And that I love that. And they can go, I love the song for this reason, and I love the song for this reason. And I go, that's exactly what we're going for. It's kind of that it applies to everybody, no matter who you are, man, woman, anybody. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. The Midnight Devils are here to party, and we're taking everybody along with us for the ride. I think that's the big appeal.
True. You made me think of something there, actually. Have you ever heard a fan say to you, oh, this song is about this, or this song means this? And you've been like, I've actually never thought of that.
Yes, all the time. And especially, so the new single is called Get Laid, and it mentions a girl's name, Susie Q. So a lot of people have been asking me, who is this Susie Q? And I go, well, I don't really know. Like Rick Browdy wrote the song, and we used it as one of ours and put it on the record, and it fit perfectly with everything the Midnight Devils were doing. But I was never sure who Susie Q was till much later, and everybody thought it was Susie Quattro, and that's what I'm going with. But it was somebody else. But yes, it's like it's such a cool thing that people can apply the songs to their lives and take it whichever way they want to, and in a positive direction, because we've lived these stories. They're all true, and they're all so fantastic, almost absurd, that it's like, what's going on the road with the Midnight Devils is complete chaos, is what it seems like.
Yeah. You'd actually be perfect for like a Scooby-Doo style cartoon about you guys, you'd never be shocked.
This week, and that's why I tell everybody, like, just when you think you've seen it all, something else happens, and you go, well, that was the craziest thing I've seen in the Midnight Devils now.
Absolutely. Now, as well as being the front man, you're also the manager of the band. I mean, do you not have enough to do as being the front man? How does it ever get too much? How do you manage it all? I
think that I love the style. I love this music. I love what we do, and it's kind of like that challenge. Like everybody told us, for the last 20 years, I've been in the touring rock band for 20 years. How crazy is that to even think? Like the better part of my life, half of my life, I've spent in a touring rock and roll band. That's just insane. But I love that challenge, and I love it so much that I couldn't stop even if I tried. So between the three of us, Jimmy and Sniper and I, we have this incredible love for this music and the passion and this drive that we've been the underdogs for so long. Everybody told us it was impossible. You're never going to amount to anything. You're never going to do. And that, it takes us back to that first question you asked about the HRH award, where I don't care about awards at this point. I used to get butthurt that we wouldn't win the awards. And now I'm just like, you know what? I'm very flattered. I love that we were considered for this award even, but I know what we've done on stage, what we've produced in the studio. And for that, I'm very, very proud. And it's like, how far can we push this? How much can we work? I don't think that like there's a time when I ever stop working on this, because I love it so much. And why would I not? It's just like the world is right there, and you always are just keep searching and pushing it. And the rewards come, and the hard times come as well. And then it's like, how are you going to get over those hard times to get back to the good times? And that's what touring is. It's just a series of hurdles that you got to jump over and move your town from, or your band from city to city. How are you going to overcome those hurdles? And it gets addicting. It's like anything else.
Yeah, yeah. One thing that I'm kind of intrigued about is, you guys, you do so much touring, and to someone not in the scene, seeing a band touring like that, there'd be people that be thinking you're like AC/DC. People
Mhm.
in your personal lives in your hometown, how do they treat you now since all this success? The band, is touring around the world. Has it changed much?
Not really. I'm telling you, in Nebraska, in Oklahoma, in New Orleans, it's like we are still just the three guys, like the three dudes that come out, and we would just want to listen to great music and have a good time, and that doesn't change when we get off stage. I work at a strip club here in Nebraska, so that's like my job as a DJ. I get to facilitate the party every single night, and for me, I get to work with this great group of girls that have no idea what I do on the outside. It's really crazy. Like they know, but they don't really know. And so it's like I get the chance and the opportunity to showcase the party every single night at this club, and I think it's really cool. It's really fun, and it's music related and show related and performance and business, and man, it's really cool. So for some people, yes, like they know where I'm going to be every single night, so they'll kind of filter into the club, and everybody comes and says hi, and it's really cool, and I feel so blessed and honored to be able to kind of tell cool stories to my friends that come back. They're like, how was Norway? I'm like, man, you wouldn't believe how beautiful Norway is. Or how was Japan? I'm like, it's a completely different world. And for a lot of people that don't get to leave the country or don't have the opportunity to do this, I can kind of provide some stories and some background and like this firsthand real dude experience.
Hmm. True, true. I'm glad you mentioned Japan, Norway. You're clocking up quite the air miles around the globe. You,
Yeah.
you guys on social media, you seem to be constantly just circling the globe on
Mhm.
tour. Most recently, it was Australia, Japan, Norway, the UK again. I mean, is there any kind of cultural differences that you pick up on within audiences in so many different varied places?
Absolutely. And what a great question this is too. One So, and I can even kind of start back and go really fast. Australia, we were opening for, so we keep bringing up AC/DC, but we were opening for an AC/DC tribute band. So if you look at the fans of AC/DC, it's that working man's rock and roll. Like they want to go out to the bar and they want to drink a ton and have a blast and talk to cute girls. Well, cool. On face value, the Midnight Devils are this glam rock band of weirdos with makeup on. But when it gets down to it, that's exactly what we are. So we would come out on stage and people would be in shell shock for the first two songs until they go, oh, I get it. I totally understand these guys. This is AC/DC. This is rock and roll. This is why we're here. And it kind of took a few songs to get into it. Now we go over
Hmm.
to Japan and they don't speak the language. They don't speak English, right? So we're
Yeah.
kind of foreigners in a foreign land. And I'm like, we're such a crowd-oriented, crowd participation band that the first couple shows in Japan, I'm like, this is hard because they don't get it and they're very subdued, respectful and a polite applause. I go, man, what am I gonna do? So our tour manager taught us how to say 1, 2, 3 in Japanese. So I go, when I say three, everybody makes some noise, and I go, each knee, san, and I raise my hands, and it took them a few minutes, but it gave them the okay to kind of let loose and have fun. Like
Ah.
we met, like lost in translation, man. We kind of bridged that gap and kind of pushed the party out of what it would have been into a whole nother realm. I love it. Now with the UK, man, it's full rock and roll, full steam ahead all the time. And I love that about the UK. It's just a lifestyle. Norway, you're in the land of black metal. So us being there is a little bit different. There's not a lot of glam rock or rock and roll in Norway. And so for us to be there is this cool thing. There's so much black metal that having a band that has color in it, a pinks and greens, and having a good time is so different. So they're like, whoa, what is this? We're having a blast doing this. That's because of that kind of Norwegian black metal up in the snow and the weather. It works, and I can see it kind of work on so many different levels, but it's just readjusting the way we attack an audience based on kind of those cultural differences.
Yeah, yeah. Have you altered or maybe upgraded your stage show over the last couple of years? Has it changed much?
Yes, it's always constantly changing, and that a cool thing that I really take pride in is that we give people the unexpected. So you think, okay, we're gonna come in and watch this band. Cool. Okay, they wear makeup and dress kind of funny. Cool. I can accept all that. Next thing you know, we've got Midnight Devils balloons. So in one of the songs, we'll open up a bag of balloons, and then these pink balloons start flying all over the place. It's brilliant, and you cannot help but smile. I'm telling you, even the most hardcore metal dude, pink balloons start flying, they're smiling. And so I thought, okay, well, it's anything that we can really imagine now, anything that we can think of, we can kind of implement into the show to kind of give it a little bit extra. So we got robes. I got a hat that has lasers on it. So it's just like the stupidest thing. But all of this has to pack into like a suitcase that we can put on the plane, you know? So it's like you can do so much, but you're limited to size. And it's just like, we can pack these beautiful robes, and Sniper brings some really cool custom guitars and stuff that nobody's taken out on the road anymore. So it's this thing, just like, if you can imagine it, you can kind of do it. You just got to make it work within the confines of being on the road, I guess, is the easiest way. So my next thing that we're kind of doing, and this is kind of an allude, we're going to be in Cincinnati in about a month for the final show of the year, but we got Midnight Devils giant beach balls. And I thought, how awesome would that be? In one of the songs, you kick out about 5 or 6 beach balls into the crowd, and everybody just starts hitting them. I'm telling you, this is going to be, it's going to be awesome, for lack of a better word.
Absolutely. Now, there's something I've been dying to speak to you about for a year and a half to 2 years. There was a Dublin gig. You may not remember.
Yeah. No,
I
do
remember. I was actually going to it. I was so excited to see you guys for the first time, and it didn't happen at the last minute. I think from what we heard at the venue, you got caught up in customs or something. I've been dying to hear your side of the story.
Yeah, okay. Because this is one of those stories that's like magic. Like I couldn't make and that's part of the songs. I couldn't make this up if I tried, right? So we were in Bradley, I think, or Bradford, UK, the night before. We were supposed to be in Dublin, and it's quite a long drive. So we got up at like 4 a.m. We played the show, got 2 hours of sleep, got up at 4 a.m, and they had to like smoke all of their pot before they got up onto the ferry, you know. So it's right when Brexit had happened, and so things were very, very confusing, and we had no idea what we were doing. We pull up to the ferry, and we just kind of sit there for hours and hours while they're going through our gear list and everything like that. And I'm like, man, we're not gonna make it. We're not even gonna make the ferry, and we already spent $700 on ferry tickets. Finally, the last one, we were the last car to board the ferry. I'm like, oh yes, we're gonna make it, cool. And we're on the boat. The ferry's like doing this, like the sea's really angry. And I'm like, what an experience. Our first time in the UK, our first time kind of being out in Europe. And we finally get it over, and we're like, whoo, we made this incredible journey. We get up to customs in Ireland, and the guy leans in, he goes, what is your business in Ireland? And our driver goes, oh, I'm with 2 American rock and roll bands. We got a show in Dublin. And we're like we're 2 miles from or 3 or 4 kilometers from the venue. Yeah. And the customs guy goes, why don't you just pull that van over to the side? We're going to search you now. Oh, and man. My heart sank, and I'm like, we were so close to making it. And they pull us into like a little barn and pull us all out of the van, had the dogs in there, sniff search everything. Like, I'm like, we're going to go to jail. This is it. Like, the bands are going to be hemmed up in an Irish prison. I'm going to have to call my parents back in the States. And so nothing happened, and they let us go, but it took so long that the promoter at the venue decided to cancel the show after everything we'd already been through. He pulled the plug on the show on the very last minute, and I was so heartbroken and so mad, and I just like, what can you do? And luckily Chip, and the kicker is we still had to pay our deposit for the venue.
Oh man.
And I was livid, and I wanted to tell the promoter exactly what I thought and tell him exactly how I felt. And Chip was there with us, Chip from Enough's Enough. And he goes, you know what? Sometimes this stuff happens, and there's nothing you can do. So don't burn your contact. Don't burn your relationship. Don't act unprofessional because of this unknown circumstance that arose. And it really made me step back and realize, yeah, like there could have been worse things that happened. It is what it is, and I just have to live with it. And we'll fight another day. It's not worth fighting for. It's not worth telling a guy to go jump off the cliff. So it was such a big day, and so many things happened that I wish we would have got to play that show at the end of the day, but we didn't make it. We spent the night in Ireland, in Dublin, and got to see the Phil statue and walk around, and it was still really cool. I just wish we would have played that show. It's like the one show that got away.
Yeah, yeah, I get you. It's funny, I kind of had been thinking to myself that night. I was standing there and I was like, you know what? It's definitely some old Irish customs guard. Now, I was after seeing the guys looking like a rock and roll
Yep.
band, and I've thought, oh, the devil, they're evil, you know?
That's exactly what happened. Like, these guys are bringing drugs and money and doing all this. And luckily, like, we're not dumb. Like, we've been kind of doing this, like, like, you just don't carry anything that you're not supposed to, because you don't want to be the guy that messes the tour up. And they thought, we were carrying, and we weren't. So
yeah,
still hemmed us up for a few hours though in the Irish customs. It was scary.
I'd imagine. Is there any plans ever to try make it back to Ireland?
Yeah, we've been back before. I mean, we went to Belfast again. So we played Belfast twice now. We haven't been back to Dublin, but that we loved it there. We've done really, really well in Belfast, so I don't see why there would be any reason we wouldn't come back to Dublin. Like, the custom stuff does not shake me at all, and they showed us a better way to get through.
Right.
Like, there's easier ways to cross the sea and get into Ireland. We just happen to take the most difficult way.
Yeah. Hey, if I have to get a rowboat and row you across the English Channel
Right.
next time, I'll do it.
And I think if you just fly straight into Dublin, like, there's no problems at all. So I think that'll be the next thing that happens.
True. And before we dive into the final few questions, then, future plans. You mentioned the gigs in Cincinnati. What else can you tell us that's coming up?
So right now we are just discussing it and really putting together what is going to be our 2025 schedule, and we're just going to continue to tour supporting this album. And my kind of idea was, why don't we just make every song on the album a single, and we'll just promote every song. No bands haven't done that, not that I know of. Just every song has a video, or every song has something that kind of pushes that song. So I don't see any reason we couldn't tour for the next 2 years on So Hard It Hurts. We got a live album we're kind of sitting on. We got a best of album we're kind of sitting on. So we're going to be doing a US tour for sure, because we haven't done a US tour in almost 1.5 years now. Like, we did a small run, but we haven't hit our home base. And I think that's really like our go-to. We'll do that. And we're talking to our promoter in the UK right now about bringing us back for next year. So kind of with all the action that's come because of the HRH award, the Midnight Devils are in demand, and not only in demand, but people know that when you book that band, or when our name's on that flyer, it's going to be a party, it's going to be a story, and there's going to be some ridiculous thing that happens that you don't want to miss. So I think that's at this point, that's like our selling point, is you put us on that bill and insanity will ensue. So there'll be more Australia, like we're talking with another Australia tour, another tour of Japan, and I don't see why it just can't keep going. And really, that's all we want at the end of the day, is just to keep going and to keep touring and keep traveling, keep hanging out with our friends. Like that, at the end of the day, that's why we do this.
Absolutely. I love to hear it. I'm so excited now to see where you guys pop up, in 2025, 2026. It's just, like I said earlier on, it's like a cartoon. You just wouldn't know where you guys will end up.
and that's the cool thing. It's the dangerous, and it's not dangerous, but it's like that unpredictability.
Yeah.
Is that anything can happen. It's that feeling. And I think that feeling is gone with a lot of rock bands, that everything's tracked and their shows are the same every single night. For us, it's not like that. It's like we don't even use a set list. We'll just kind of call out songs based on what we feel the audience really wants and needs. And so that, I think, is that cool thing where we can kind of beat any other band out there, because we don't use any crutches. It's live or nothing. And that's a testament to the guys in the band as well. To Sniper, he's our musical director, and he's really the guy that makes sure that we toe the line musically, sonically on stage, that we have it all together to present to a crowd, and that it kicks ass every single night.
Absolutely. Right, we'll dive into the last couple. There are a couple of random ones. First off, besides music and the band, I know there's no time besides music and the band, but what are you currently obsessed with?
Right now, it's history, and what a weird thing to even talk about. But I love history. I love American history, European history, anything like that. So being on tour is a really good excuse to go and see a lot of old buildings and to see all these historical sites. And I had no idea, but I went to college when I was younger, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and drank my way through college, barely got a degree, but I passed. But one of my things, like my minors, was history. And I didn't know it at the time that I was really into all of this stuff. But realizing later on with the wisdom with age that, man, I love history. And I think going out and seeing beautiful buildings and churches and where stuff happened is kind of a cool thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's the coolest thing or your favorite thing you've seen on tour then?
Like we went to, I was just thinking about that the other day. We went and saw, we've seen so many great things. We saw John Bonham's grave. Awesome. That was amazing. We went and saw, where were we? We saw, and it always comes down to graves, but we saw Bon Scott's grave, which was just killer on like his birthday. But we've seen, we went to Venice, Italy. We've been to these beautiful churches all over Italy. We've drove through the Alps in like a van in the fog. And I'm just like, this is just incredible seeing this stuff. Down in Australia, seeing the Opera House. Like, how awesome is that? The Sydney Opera House. We took a boat around, just doing that kind of touristy stuff that my friends back home would never ever do. And I love doing that, and kind of love finding those little like hole in the walls. Like, hey man, we're just gonna go out for a walk, and we found these beautiful cathedrals or stuff just hidden in Italy somewhere. I love that stuff, and it kind of gets my weirdness tingler going. Where I'm like, we need to keep doing this. This is so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I don't want to add anything else to your plate now, but you have to write a book about your adventures at some stage.
I think I've had this idea. So you're not the first person to bring this up. And I go, you know what? I'm going to start writing. And so at the beginning of this year, I got a journal, and it's not necessarily a journal, but it's just a book that I capture everything that I see, everything that I feel. And I'm going to compile it into a book, I think, when the journal is done, and just all these great ideas. And it doesn't have to be a biography, but I want it to kind of be exactly what you said, just kind of like these tales and what happened, because they're too good to not capture. And people want to know, people want to read this stuff. And I even got a title for it. I think I'm going to call it Executing Destiny. Executing Destiny by Sam Spade. See, it sounds nice already.
It actually does. It actually does.
But the idea is like changing your patterns and the way you think, and changing your reality. Kind of just, getting on a plane and altering your reality, going somewhere else and doing something completely different, but just living in that moment. And you've kind of changed your surroundings and changed everything about it. I think that's such a cool thing. And you can do it in your mind. Even if you can't travel, you can change your destiny and where you're at in your mind. And I think that's such a cool thing. And it's something that needs to be written about.
Absolutely. Definitely. And the final question, so I wonder if it's changed since the last time. What's your go-to album?
My go-to album changes all the time. So I really like, I love, right now, it is AC/DC, and it is Power Age. How weird is that?
Ah, right.
Yeah,
right.
so like this, doing that AC/DC tour, meeting all these people that were fans of AC/DC, but being in that spot gave those songs a whole different meaning to me. And so now when I listen back, I go, I can kind of take myself, exactly like we talked about, back to that time and those good feelings that I had, standing on the side of the stage watching this band play these songs to these people going crazy. So it's like the beauty of music, man. It just can kind of take you and spin you, and for me, it always kind of puts me in a positive light. Like, man, I can get through anything. It doesn't matter how bad it is. I still have this beautiful thing called rock and roll that will help me get through any problem that I seem to have. It's also caused a lot of problems, I'm not gonna lie, but that's those hurdles we jump over.
Exactly. Up and down. Look for the good again once you're in the bad.
Yep, absolutely. Like, we'll get through this and they'll be good on the other side. Don't worry about it.
Exactly. Sam, listen, as always, this has been an absolute pleasure yet again. Thanks a million.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it, man. I really do. Great questions. Like, you had me thinking, which is beautiful. I love it.
Welcome to the podcast, concerts that made us, interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and that cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that